Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Life and Fight of a podcast. My co-host Simon Price, and we're lucky enough today to be joined by comedian, commentator, entrepreneur, legend, Bryan Lacey. How's it going, Bryan?
Oh, mate, other human beings, it's just good to see you. It's just good to see you. Even my mum stopped phoning, mate. That's how needy I am. So 2 new people to harass is perfect. Thank you very much.
Keep it going, mate.
So we'll touch on that. Obviously, it's currently Tuesday, 7th of April. We're still in lockdown.
Is it really? What? You're even remembering the day. Stop showing
I had to look at the corner of a computer. I was like, shit, it's Tuesday, right? So obviously this will be going out tomorrow to everyone, but we're recording it ahead of time. So how are you coping with everything? You're at home with your wife and your daughter, aren't you? How's it been going? Homeschooling, trying to keep your relationship without an argument, because I know it's hard.
mate, it's, you know what? I'm lucky because my wife is awesome and we have a lot of fun. And my daughter's a complete Nazi, to be honest, mate. She's 6 years old and she rules the house. But you know what? It's so far it's all right. I think when we start getting into weeks 4, 5, 6, you can feel the nerves just kind of tingling. Everyone's in the same boat though, man. It's madness. This whole situation is absolute madness. So I just hope everyone else is staying calm, staying sane, doing stuff like the PTs. It's good. We just did PE with Joe. We'll check yours out though, Simon.
Oh, nice.
Don't worry.
Yeah, definitely, mate. Yeah, we'll hook you up. Don't worry.
That sounds
so
good.
So you talking about Joe Wicks?
Yeah, Joe Wicks. I do a workout. My wife just drools. That's all that happens. That's it.
Over you or Joe?
No, well, come on, mate. The camera's not that bad on this thing, is it? Let me just see. No, listen, quite honestly, she just pauses it on the lunges and I have to figure out the exercises for the rest of the day for myself. But do you know what? It's one of those things where you just get on with it. It is what it is. You've got to deal with it. There's loads of frustrations about it, of course, work, money, not be able to see friends, family. But I think, luckily, I'm with the right people to be locked down with. They know how mad I am. I know how mad they are. So we'll just get on with it.
Sounds like a good mix there, mate, to be fair. It's better than talking to the walls, isn't it?
Wait, I tell you what we should do though, mate. We should, because I know your wife tried to stitch me up on this. We should do like a virtual wife swap on Zoom. See how long we cope with each other's missuses, and then we'll hand them back, and we'll that one of those things. Oh, I missed you so much. What the hell was that?
Like, come back to me.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
I would be scared that I would lose Catherine to you anyway, because you get on so well when we're at UKFC.
Mate, I've told you about this beard. This is not an accident, mate. This lockdown's given me an excuse to go for the full Jake, and I know how much you love the full Jake, mate. That's it.
That's becoming a thing now.
It's so you best watch out, Jake. Next time I come up, I might be hairier than you. Well, I doubt that actually, but I do know how protective your missus is. So protective over your beard. That's what amazes me.
Yeah, she will not let me cut it. Like, my hair's getting quite long at the minute. So technically, you could do bottom half you like me, and then top half Simon. Do the whole shaving your head.
There we go. See, mine's the complete opposite. She's sort of like, make sure you keep the beard trimmed, keep your hair short. You know, don't want you getting too out of control. And I'm like going, don't worry, it's gonna get sorted.
my wife's just happy if I shower. That's what we do. She goes, "Are you washing today?" That's a yes.
Are you washing today?
Like a little sink wash under the armpits, you know. And
just press the shower on. You're not really using it. It's just like
that's it. I'm just sat on the bog on TikTok. So
TikTok.
I've joined TikTok, mate. I'm 40 years old. Lockdown's made me join TikTok. I'm practicing dance routines. I'm doing all sorts on there.
See, that's what my partner's doing right now. She's currently at home with the sisters, trying to practice some dance routines, and it's like, it's not for me, but fair play to you.
Fair play. It keeps you entertained for 4 to 5 hours a day, mate. That's it. It's all good. It's all good.
It does. I don't know what you guys. It's like you do find yourself creating things to do. But I seem to be more productive in a way. I don't know what you guys like. I'll go through the house a bit more. Like I've changed this office around 3 times in 4 days, just because I wanted to try different angles of the computer and the cameras and stuff, and went through. And I was getting rid of bags of stuff I didn't even know I had and throwing away. And I was thinking, it makes sense. You're making something to do. What about
do you know what? In this this weird time, that is the bonus, and it's what you make of it. Because how many times do you either arrange to do something, or you think you've got like this little ambition where you want to try and either set up a podcast or even just get fit or do something? When have you ever had time on your hands? And this is the time where we've got no excuses. You've got it, and it's those people that use it that will make something of this time, and those people that don't will come out with diabetes. That's probably the only other option.
Or both.
Or
Well,
both,
I've already emptied my biscuit cupboard anyway, so that's. I'm off to a B&M run next to get some load of chocolate biscuits.
So with you, Bryan, so we did a bit of an announcement yesterday that you're coming on the podcast. I don't know if it was your sister, is it Victoria, your sister? No.
That my sister-in-law would be Victoria. That's my sister-in-law.
I incorrectly said witted. I put whited. I was just typing as fast as I could, and she spelled it correctly. So that's how bored she is.
There's a few grammar Nazis on my timeline, mate. Don't worry about that.
So we did a bit of an announcement about a tiny bit about your background. Typed ACA in UKFC. I think we'll touch on maybe at the beginning. So what made you get into comedy? What was your first thing that you fell in love with? Was it when you're young? Were you watching something?
Do you know what? I've always loved comedy. I've always loved making people laugh. I literally was like the class clown. I wasn't one of those that didn't like do the classes or anything, but I always had quick answers for the teachers. And I always loved making the class laugh more than doing the work. But so it's that whole cliche of that's what I was from a very young age. Loved the attention. Love just laughter as a response is amazing. When you can make someone crease over without being able to stop it, that's awesome. But I never knew it could be a job. Never had any idea. So I literally I started it when I moved back to London. I did a sales job for about 5 years, which I was only going to do for a year. So I sort of fell into the trap of driving around the country doing sales, waking up in travel lodges, not knowing which town or city I was in, and I was good at it. I was very good at sales, so I earned a lot of money. So I suddenly was staring at my life, and I was waking up in these travel lodges, not knowing which town or city I was in, and not having any social life. And I thought, you know what, stop. So I just quit. So I quit the job.
Wow.
I moved to London. I had enough money to not do anything for about 6 months. So I had saved up enough to just try and figure out what I wanted to do next. And the problem with having so much time on your hands is that your mates don't. Your mates have got jobs, they got families. So I was in London like, this is going to be amazing. This is going to be awesome. I'll be able to go out and go gigs and watch some music, watch some comedy. But I had no one to go with because everyone's got real lives. So they were having to get up on a Monday morning and do that. So what I ended up doing was just going out on my own, going watching comedy, watching these little open mic nights, seeing people do these. And I had no idea how it worked. I didn't know that comedians, and don't want to shatter the illusion that they use the same material again and again. It's not a thing that they get up there and they just say things off the top of their head. It's very, very rare you'll find comics that do that. So that whole thing, I suddenly realized that you can, and you're only up there for 5 minutes to start with, 3, 4, 5 minutes. So I got this little thing in my head where I thought, do you know what, if none of my mates can come out with me and I'm doing this thing of going out and watching comedy on my own, why don't I just do it? Why don't I just give it a go? So I braved it, did my first 5 minutes, which I thought it went all right, but when I look back, it was awful.
So you still got to there so you can look back on it and sort of.
No, it was burnt to smithereens, mate. That memory needs to die in hell.
So when was this? What year was this?
This would be 2006. And then, so the good thing though, then I got the bug, and it is a bug. It's like jiu-jitsu gives you the bug. It's like anything where you suddenly find you enjoy it, you got a passion for it. There's a journey as far as you learn how to get better at it. You have good times, you have bad times. But because I wasn't working, because I had 6 months, in that first 6 months, I think it would have been well over 130, 140 gigs. Wow. Just going out doing 5 minutes. And it's like anything, it's mat time. There's so many similarities between fighting, jiu-jitsu and comedy, because you do it on your own as far as you get in there and you stand up on the stage and you do that. Practice is what you need. You never find your voice or your style before you've put enough hours on the mat in or getting up on stage. And there's so many failures before you get successes. You've got to be shit to get good. And it's the ones that you really do find with comedy that the best comics, the ones that are at the top, the ones that stay at the top, are good. They really are good. And it's not just because they're lucky or they've got a good personality. The ones that I know that are at the top of the game, that have got massive success, have put in the work. And that is something you cannot shy away from. You've got to put in the work. So I had 6 months of doing gig after gig, just going out on my own, getting the bug. And then slowly and surely, without me even thinking about it, without even it sort of creeping in, people start giving you 20 quid to come and do 10 minutes, or that covers your travel this time. Or then you go and do that, and they say, well, do you want to come and open for us next time in 6 months? So you put that in 6 months, and that's 50 quid. And then it builds and it builds. And before I knew it, and this is what I said about commentary as well, that they were just hobbies that suddenly I started to get paid for. So it was never anything where I thought, I'm going to make this a job. This is going to be me. This is what I want to do. It was something that I had a passion for. I put the work in, and then suddenly, stupidly, people gave me money to do it. So I still think I'm very lucky.
So you put the graft in with it. It's kind of like you hear sort of other comedians talk on like your other podcasts and stuff, and they sort of call it like working out. And like
muscle,
you say, they go out to the clubs to practice the sets before they go and tour them, don't they?
Yeah. You've got to build your material. So there's some amazing comics, and I'll think of some that might not be world famous, but there's like a guy called Tom Stade, who's a Canadian comic. He's done a fair bit of TV, but I've been lucky enough to work with people like him, with Ramesh, with Russell Kane, Dara O'Brien, people like that. And you see what they do. They turn up, and they got these big pads of paper with their jokes, and they look at it. And Tom Stade is the best example I've got, because he's so well known on the comedy circuit for being prolific. He just turns out, year after year, he turns out material, which is so difficult to do. He's got his own style, his own voice. But I worked with him in Leicester. It was a weekend club, which are hard clubs, because it's usually stag and hen do's. So one person is booked for an entire group to go and do that. Most of them just want to get pissed or get to the strip club or go do whatever else, or they're on bags of cocaine or whatever. So it's not the best comedy audience. But testament to him, he went up there and he went out, and on he did his normal, like his greatest hits to start with. So he got him on his side, and then in the middle of it, he put this new bit about his wife, and she just kept buying all this stuff, and suddenly he could fill skips quicker than it was just a bit of material. You could see it was a seed of an idea. And on the Thursday he did it to start with, and it got nothing. Like, it just dipped. So then he went back into his greatest hits. Then the next night, he'd done something where he switched one of the sections to the start. So the setup was different, and it got a little bit more. And then on the Saturday night, he came, and it was like a perfectly formed piece of material. He'd learned exactly where to put the bits, because he could do this super quick, because he knew where he needed the hooks to be for the audience to go with him on the journey, for the punchline to really to really zing. And it was amazing just to watch this one bit of material. He kind of thought, well, it's an idea, but it's not much. So the next night, I go, he's got something there. And then the final night, he actually put the end at the beginning, and then he'd made the setup shorter and then the punchline longer, and he just kept drawing it out. And the raise with the crowd, you just kind of stand back. And it's one of those things, like, I'm sure when you roll with people in jiu-jitsu, there's levels. There are levels, and you can be doing the same clubs as these people. You can have a great gig, but then suddenly, like, you might roll with somebody and you go, oh, hang on, this is different levels. They pass guard different to anyone else. They can get to my back like nobody else can. And it was exactly the same. There's comics out there, and it's when you find your voice and when you put the work in, it's masterful to watch.
It's one of them as well. It's sort of like, you can compare that to, there's the naturally talented ones, but then the ones that stick at it and keep grafting and keep working hard, they're going to surpass any sort of levels. Yeah.
I remember this, and that's the same with anything in life. That is the same. You find something you want to do. It doesn't have to be something artistic or something to do with sport. It could be whatever you put yourself to. If you put the work in, you can achieve amazing things. And I always remember at school, we had some amazing footballers at our school. There was one guy who at the age of 6 was signed to Man United. He was then getting trials for all these teams, and he lost the passion. But he had a lot of talent, but he stopped putting the work in. And there was another kid who just turned up. Started off like just a right back, and you wouldn't even remember him if you were watching a football game. And I remember turning the football on. It was years ago now, but it must have been 15, 16 years ago. And I heard his name called on a Premier League game, and I was like,
Oh, wow.
can't be. And there he was, playing for. And he was never the best footballer. He was never the best personality, but he just stuck at it. He just put the work in, and I think that's, if we're going on life lessons and all that sort of stuff. Work beats everything. Hard work, dedication. The more you put into something, the more you get out of it.
No,
Do
definitely.
you find with like the comedy scene and working your way up? So obviously you both know I'm a big wrestling geek, so I'll use this sort of as an analogy. So there's NXT, which is the sort of the developmental side, and they're in like a small university arena, so it has like 200-300 people in, and they sort of build characters and see responses, see what works, see what doesn't work before they put them on a main stage like the Raw, SmackDown, WrestleMania, etc. Do you find that there's two completely different audiences? Like if you're doing like a Hot Water Comedy Club to an arena, or Hot Water Comedy Club to a bigger venue, that there's either different, you can get different laughs with different size audiences? Or do you feel like when you go to Hot Water Comedy Club, you find that sometimes there's a hardcore audience, someone that knows wit, knows jokes, gets everything on time, but then you go to some places where it's a bit bigger or even smaller and it's just kind of like really quiet? What do you find there's a difference in different places?
Do you know what, there's so many variables in comedy, and there's people just think comedy, if you stick a microphone in a room, then that can be a comedy gig. That's not how a comedy gig works. There's places like Hot Water Comedy Club which have nurtured a comedy scene. They've really been on the side of the comedians, so everything's set up right. They put a really strong MC on, an MC now that is famous. Played the Apollo, Paul, I forgot his name, Paul Smith, is it? I forgot it, but he's
the
yeah,
Scouts guy.
yeah.
Yeah, the Scouts guy.
I was going to mention him. He's probably one of my favourite comedians because he interacts with the audience so well.
And he was like their standard compere. So he was like a resident compere, but he was so good. He's now built an audience that he sold the Apollo out, not for multiple nights, which is ridiculous to think about that. But there's, like I was saying, there's so many variables in stand-up comedy that people do think if you just put a microphone in a room, that should be enough for a comedian. If you're funny, you should be able to make an audience laugh. There's so many things. If anything's distracting, if you're serving food or drinks in the middle of the thing, it's like if I start telling you a joke and then Catherine walks in and she asks you a question, you answer the question, then you come back to me and I've carried the joke on, so you've missed a chunk of it. So if there's all these distractions that haven't got, like the audience just sitting in rows pointing forward at you, the stage being the most important thing in a room, the microphone and the sound systems being good, it makes such a difference. I've genuinely been to a club where I went in there, it was their first night, and I used to, one of the things that I used to get a lot of, I used to get sent for the first night because I'd either MC, because I can play around with the crowd a lot, or I'm just fairly solid at making any gig all right. But there are some limits. And I remember I went to this one gig and he'd put the stage in between the two toilets, so that the ladies' toilets was on one side, the gents was on another. So in the gig, people were going to the toilet and you can hear it. You can hear the hand dryers. You can hear whatever they're doing in there. You can hear the lot. So the audience are hearing that more than they're hearing you. And he actually came up to me. The guy said, just want to show you this. Got this new microphone. I was like, oh, brilliant. That's awesome. We got a good mic. And he went, yeah, got this at a car boot sale, £4. There you go. And it's just like, what? And it wasn't even worth £4. But that just puts everything against the comic. So you find different rooms work for different reasons. I've been to gigs where I've been in theatres and you think this is going to be the best gig of your life, and it's not set up right, or it's not quite run right, so it's difficult. Then I've been to pubs in the middle of nowhere where there's 12 people and you think this is going to be a nightmare, and it's one of the best nights you've ever had because it's something special. They're there for it. So it's difficult to say it's difficult to say as far as what makes makes it work for a comedian, but it's very easy to say what what will make it not work. And I think rooms like Hot Water Comedy Club, they're the ones that got to be cherished. They're the ones that understand what a comic needs, and if you go to places like that, that's why they need your support. I know it's weird now, no live comedy, no live sport apart from the UFC buying an island, but those sort of places, they are, as a comedian, they're like the golden clubs to play.
So, like, my home comedy place in Manchester is the Frog and Bucket. Have you ever performed there at all?
Yes, mate. The Frog and Bucket. First gig I went up to when I was up in Manchester was the Frog and Bucket. Still remember seeing Jared Christmas on that stage. and he was amazing. He still is amazing. He's just such a solid comic. And then because that's one of the first places I went to watch comedy, when you go and stand on it, you get quite intimidated. But what I didn't realise, because you just kind of watch it from the audience perspective, is the stage is really high. So even the steps going up to it, I remember tripping up the steps, stumbling towards the mic, then looking down, looking a bit petrified. And my first gig there was really tough because I was intimidated by the club because it was the one that I'd been up north.
So I think I remember first time I was at the Frog and Bucket. Some doing that. Is it the past the frog ones where they have the cards? It's like the open mic.
Yeah, it's Beat the Frog. Yeah.
Some poor fella was on there and he could not set up or deliver any of his material. But it seemed like it was part of his act at first, and then the crowd was savage. Nobody put the cards up for him, and I felt so bad for the guy.
Mate, this is the beauty of English audiences as well. We have got such a good sense of humour. We've got such a good circuit. But English audiences, they will, if you are good, they'll give you everything. Like if you knock it out of the park, you can have some of the clubs we've got in this country, like the Glees and the Comedy Store and Hot Water. If you get on a wave on them, it's amazing. But equally, if you are dying on your ass in one of those clubs, English people love it more than any other country. They're like, oh, fucking hell, he's in trouble. Let's watch this.
Sitting back, feet up, going, right then.
Oh, he's got cotton mouth. There we go.
Do you feel like it's better to follow a comedian? I think this would be the right answer, but follow a comedian that's been on fire, that they've got the crowd laughing? Or do you feel like it's better to follow someone that's failed a little bit and you think, right, I'm going to pick these up?
Do you know what? It's a weird one because there's for that it's difficult because if someone smashed it, it's very difficult to follow it because your set usually builds. So if someone's got to their crescendo and they've smashed it, then for you to start down here, it's one of those where the audience will go, oh, I prefer the other guy. But that's when MCs become such an important thing. So the people that are in between the acts, and everyone, this is one of the things I used to MC a lot. And audience members used to come up to you and go, do you know what? You're funnier than the comedians. Do you know what? You should try comedy yourself and all that. They do not understand that is a comedian in the middle there and they're doing a job. And the great comic, the great MCs reset the room. So if it's been smashed, if it's been absolutely decimated, they still keep the energy, but they just drop it enough and they bring you on and then you've got somewhere to work from. If it's died on its ass, they go up there and they reinstall the energy. They do so well. And I don't think there's some great MCs in this country. Stephen Grant as well, down at Comedia in Bath, which is I think that's my favourite club. He is just spectacular. Like his material is fantastic, but he understands where the crowd need to be for the act. So that is one of those misconceptions where people think, well, if someone's just smashed it, you can just go on and take that energy and carry on. It doesn't actually work like that. So that MC role, that bit in the middle is so important. And the great MC, it's probably it's probably actually a compliment if the audience come up to you afterwards and kind of go, oh, you should be a comic, because they haven't realised what you're doing. And those comics that can get, those MCs, they can go up there and instead of just stealing that wave and thinking, right, I'm going to smash it as well and make it even harder for the next act to come on, the ones that kind of go, do you know what, I'm going to bring it down, temper it a little bit and let that guy take it back up. They're the gems on the comedy circuit, the hidden heroes.
Have you sort of come across or had any gigs where the MC's been particularly bad, where they've not been able to manage the crowd?
100%, yeah, 100%. But that sometimes comes down to the bookers as well. So bookers that don't really understand what they'll just book certain acts because they can get them there. That's what, like, having a car and being able to drive is actually a qualification in comedy. Like, if you can drive 2 acts from London, 2 headline level acts from London, they'll give you a gig and they'll put you on and you get to MC it. So it's still one of those things, the rites of passage of doing it. I did a lot of it. I drove comics all over the place, from Exeter to Newcastle and back in one night, to just to get like 10 minutes stage time. But it's part of the thing. But that's you kind of learn it, and as you get better, that's the other thing. I've done it 14 years, I think, like 14 years professionally, and and you get enough tools in your box that if the MC is that bad, you know what to do to sort of reset it. Some gigs are unsavable. So you get on and you do your time and you get off and you drive home with no radio on, just thinking about all the life choices you've made that have put you in this position, that you're driving a shitty third-hand car all the way back from Exeter for £75. But then on the mate, it's a long way away. But then there's other gigs which just make it worthwhile. It's just like, and comedy is one of those things where you'll get grounded at any point. There's no, I've seen top level comics, TV like comics go on stage, and the 5-minute middle spot has had a better gig than them, just because of the room or the audience or something struck a nerve with them or whatever else. So there's no, you can't stroll on to any stage in the world and think, I've got this. You always take a deep breath before your first joke goes out. When you get that first laugh, then you can kind of go, all right, they're with me. If they don't laugh, then you got to start working. But that's the beauty of it. It is an art. It is an absolute art. It is one of those things where it's very hard to describe to people. I've done gigs where I've been dying on my ass and I've turned it around. I've done gigs where I've walked on there, smashed it for 15, 20 minutes, and then for some reason something's happened in the room and they wanted to kill me by the end of it. So it's a very grounding art. I'll say that.
As a comparison, then, because obviously you do commentary for MMA. So you said about the lull of going on a sort of like a main event, and you got the compare that comes in and either lowers the tone or picks it back up, however the person before was. So sorry to use wrestling again. So it's something that I knew they did, but I didn't know if other people did it. So if you had a big show on, you got the crowd, and you've had like say 5 matches, and you're on match 3, and it blew the roof off, and the crowd are like off on the edge of the seats. And then what they would normally do for the co-main event, they would put like a slower pace match on, get the crowd to get a drink, get the breath back a little bit, and then main event will blow it off again. Have you compare it with, so obviously like Compare does that for comedy? Do you feel like when you're commentating in MMA, whether it's a small show or the big shows like ACA, do you feel like you've commentated on a fight and it's been that good, you feel like, well, I need the next fight to be a bit of a more relaxed because I need to get my breath back? Do you ever find that?
Do you know what? No, because I'm greedy. I'm damn greedy, and I'm gonna break it to you, Jake. Wrestling's fake, all right? Wrestling.
No.
Listen. So they can do those lows because they know what's going to happen in the next.
Course.
With an MMA fight, you got no idea what's going to happen. The undercard can smash the main card. The main event can die on its ass after 6 months of big promotion, hype, and all that, and then it can be the dullest fight you've ever seen. So with MMA, because you've got no control over what's going to happen right in front of you. It's one of those things where you always try and keep the energy going, and you never know what's going to happen. You're always fed by what's right in front of you, and it's one of those strange things. I've seen commentators say before that they've said to fighters, "I've given you some good commentary there. I've done that for you," and you think, "Hang on a minute, stop." Pump the brakes, because they gave you everything. Whatever you turn that into is down to what they put in the cage, and that's why it's very. That is one difference. I've never even thought of that before. That's one difference between comedy and commentary. Is in comedy you will try and taper it, or you try and keep the waves or the level of energy so that the next person can succeed, or so that you can take it where you want to go. Whereas MMA, there's no way of predicting. You've got no idea what's going to happen or what people will pull out today. Yeah, well, that's why it's the greatest sport on the planet.
So how did you find sort of like the transition, sorry Jake, from going between comedy and the commentating? Like, is there like a mindset shift, or is this like different ways you prepare for it?
It's very similar. Very similar. I get nervous before every single show, whether it's like
I must say, his notes are amazing. Like, oh, wow. I know how much detail he goes into for him. He literally begs me for the fight card so he can research.
Yeah. And that's
man.
That's any card. That is any card, and it's one of these things. And I feel dead lucky. I feel really, really, really lucky to be doing what I'm doing. I feel like I've got a responsibility as well. I think with MMA, from the small shows all the way up to the big ones, I'll put as much effort in as I do for a big ACA card as I would for a UKFC or an ICFC, where you've got fighters that maybe are making their debut. hopefully, if you spoke to most of the fighters from UKFC, they'll tell you I've reached out to them, I've contacted them, I've asked them questions, I try and find out about their background, because I have a very limited amount of time, and because I don't know how long the fight's going to go on for, because I don't know if it's going to be a very exciting fight or it might be a dull fight where I've got to fill a lot. I've got to find out as much about these people as possible, because it's my job. I think this is my job to for people who've never seen it before, to find out something about that person. My favourite fighters are not the fighters necessarily that put on the greatest fights. It's the ones with the best stories. And just asking some people about their backgrounds or what got them into it, or their mindset before they go into a fight, how they bounce back from a loss, what that was like. You find out about the people. And if I can, before they touch gloves and they start fighting, if I can get you invested in one of those people, if I can tell you a bit of their stories or a bit about them, then hopefully you'll be more invested in the fight. Hopefully, without knowing it, you'll have a kind of bias about who you want to be on the side of, and that hopefully adds to the fight. We've all flicked through YouTube and you turn on a fight and you don't know who the fighters are, and that means you're not interested, so you kind of flick to the next one. If you kind of find out about the person, the people behind, the reason they're why they're in there, or because they are unique human beings. Who the fuck, excuse my language, trains
It's a
for
podcast.
12
Swear as much as you want, Bryan.
Right.
Who gives a fuck?
Which stupid cunt? Drop the C-bomb. Sorry, Mum. Sorry. Which stupid idiot would train for 12 weeks while somebody else in another part of the world in the country trains for 12 weeks thinking about it, 8, 12, 6, whatever weeks it is, to then lock themselves in a cage without any beef, like without maybe some beef, maybe not, and then kick the shit out of each other. These humans are amazing, and I've seen it from people that are natural born fighters. You've got your Rico Francos in the world, you've got your Nate Diaz's, to people that are supreme athletes and they want to test themselves. Your Phil Davis, the people like that, and they're all in there for a reason. And I love it. I love the research. It's the only job I've ever done where I find myself at 2 a.m. telling myself to stop because I've got to go to sleep. Like, I'll be watching the fights, checking their social media. That's another great thing to do. Find out who they're training with, anything interesting in their backgrounds that you can bring up or ask them about. And if I can help, if whether the fight lasts for 20 seconds or it goes for 15, 25 minutes, if I can get you invested in those people, then I think I've done it. Then I hopefully have done my job.
Oh, definitely.
So
back to that as well. Oh, sorry, go on.
I was just saying, take a step back a bit. So you did come in 2006. So when was your first? I don't want to say commentary right now. When was your first? When did you first come across MMA, UFC, Jiu-Jitsu? What made you get so interested into it? Before we talk about how you got your first commentary gig.
So, of all the sports that I've ever been interested, I used to play a lot of football, play rugby, basketball was my favourite sort of sport at high school. I remember at junior school, and I remember there was a guy called Edward Baxter, and his brother was James Baxter, and he was a lot older than us. And he trained martial arts, and he used to tell his brother, who would tell us about these about jiu-jitsu, about these small guys that would beat big guys up. And I used to be obsessed with boxing. It was the only sport my dad would come home and watch with us. So everyone else would watch it down the pub, but my dad always came home, always let us sit up. And I right back from watching Barry McGuigan to, this shows how old I am now, Nigel Benn, Chris Eubank, Frank Bruno, and then Mike Tyson turned up on the scene. And I would be petrified for like a week afterwards, because that human being existed. That guy. Oh, mate. But my dad would let us watch it, and he'd do this, like, he'd spark people out in 19 seconds. He would have this look staring that, like, and I used to go to sleep or try and go to sleep, but it would stay with me that I'll be playing on this schoolyard, yet on another part of this world, this planet, there's a human being like Mike Tyson, which made me think there might be more like that. I don't think whether it's luckily or not, there's not many more like Mike Tyson. But combat sports has always been a massive obsession. I've always thought it's the most exciting sport. There's so much behind it. It's I don't know. Obviously, human beings, we're drawn to violence. We've always have been. We like that gladiator sort of thing. But I remember being like, I was always into boxing, but I just remember being curious about this thing, jiu-jitsu. And then people started talking about this Ultimate Fighting Championship. And I remember it was a few years afterwards, somebody said, have this tape, this VHS, and they gave me a VHS. And I went back on my own and I watched, I think it was Evan Tanner.
Oh, wow.
And he won the UFC championship. I've forgotten who he fought. And I was just like, what is this? And since then, I used to watch it a lot on my own. Used to watch all from the Ultimate Fighters, the very first seasons, and I just became obsessed. Just that, and all the other sports disappeared. I used to have a season ticket for Huddersfield Town. Used to play basketball and football, and then everything else just dissipated into just me watching mixed martial arts, kickboxing, Pride. Anything, a pigeon fighting over a chip, anything would do me, mate. Anything.
Why Huddersfield? Sorry, I can't ignore that.
Right, because I was raised there, mate. And my dad used to play golf with a guy who had two daughters, Kelly Secker and Leanne Secker, and John Secker. He tried to get his daughters to come and to watch football. And at the age of 8, he said, "I give up. Does your son want to come and watch football with me?" So I used to go to Huddersfield Town every other week with him to the cowshed, as it was then, and all the way through high school. Used to follow him around the country, do all that sort of stuff. And then by the time I'd found MMA, because I'd never had any success really, they won the league 3 times in a row, 1923. But then I disappeared, went off to watch mixed martial arts, and then they got promoted to the Premierships. So maybe I was a curse.
And then relegated.
In fact, there's not my Huddersfield Town. Thanks, mate. There you go, Huddersfield.
There you go.
That wasn't even set up, guys. Just relax.
It's like the compare. I just knew it was there. I set it up.
Oh, there we go. Coming work in the interior, you've been there. That's it.
There you go, son.
So, you say about 2006 with comedy, 2005, 2006ish was your first Ultimate Fighters, and around that time, and like you say, the late great Evan Tanner, phenomenal fighter.
Cabbage? Do you remember Cabbage? Do you remember him?
From the Ultimate Fighter?
No, he wasn't the Ultimate Fighter. He was. That's just jumped in my head. I was just trying to think of fighters that I remember it was like the era of first time that Orlovsky won the UFC Championship, Frank Mir. But there's a guy called Cabbage.
Wesley Kahea.
There you go. And he was a Muay Thai fighter, but he had no expression. He got the shit beaten out of him, but he always stayed with me. Cabbage, hope you're well. I hope you're not one.
I hope you're not. Wow. Okay.
That's just me. I really do now, mate. I really do, because this will be a terrible thing. If on your first podcast out, there I am. I've said that, and then someone sends images of it. Oh, mate. You can edit this. This isn't live anyway.
Well, I've edit points there. We'll do.
Another section. I'll put a little audio thing in. If you're offended, stop listening for 30 seconds. Well, say that isn't everyone offended these days of something?
Oh, mate.
Someone's probably offended of a cabbage. So can't win.
That's it. That's changed the game as well for comedians as well. People getting. Yeah. I'm moving on quickly. People getting offended at everything. People getting offended on behalf of other people has made comedy a very strange. There's landmines everywhere, so people who maybe haven't even been at your gig will just hear something that you've said from the gig out of context and blow it up. It's crazy. Crazy.
Concept I've always struggled with that is like when people get offended with comedians, because I've always looked at it as sort of almost part of your role in society to highlight the injustices as well, and kind of make a joke about it to bring it to surface. Yeah,
totally. And also, listen, the small print is the big print. Comedy. They're trying to make jokes, and whether you like it or you don't, it's subjective. It is an art. If you walk into an art gallery and you go, "Well, I don't want to see that naked man there. I'm going to complain to the curator that's offended me." That's ridiculous. You walked into an art gallery.
Probably somebody who's done that anyway.
That's. I'm just picturing. I don't know why I'm picturing Jake on the wall. That's the weird thing. That's
It's the beard. It's the beard.
Yeah, but I'm not thinking about that part of his hairiness. That's the scary thing. I just imagine he's got it trimmed the same way. That's it.
this is that long that it's able just to cover.
I've never seen a comb down before. Yeah, I've seen the comb over. A comb down's weird.
Just try to put it up. Just while you said about, I won't say this is offensive because it made me laugh, but we'll quickly do something you've been doing at home. So I'll quickly share the screen for this. Give me 1 second.
Oh, look at you getting all tech.
I know.
Simon taught me some of this. So,
Oh,
see that TikTok as well?
mate, look at that. I genuinely have joined TikTok. Help me.
See, these videos have been cracking me up.
So, Bryan, just before we press play on this, give a bit of a background. So, you started doing a few videos at home, basically with your daughter, wasn't it? Homeschooling.
Yeah.
So, how did you? What? Obviously, you're a comedian, so you're going to think of stuff like this anyway. But how did that sort of come about? You were messing with Alexa, and then you did a longer video after this, and then you did this. What sort of went through your head? Did you use the same thing as a bit of research first? What was it?
No, do you know what? It's just little things you find funny. So little things pop in your head, and as a comic, your brain's kind of switched in a different way anyway. But this one that was thanks to my mates, the Alexa one, because one of my mates who works in a council, very straight-laced guy, but very funny guy. He just said, "Have you ever tried this with Alexa?" And then what we'd ended up doing was sending pictures of little videos of us asking Alexa to do various things. And one of them was the one you're talking about. And I thought I could actually tie that into a homeschooling, a golden age, because it's you've got all these things at your fingertips. Yet Alexa, the CIA spy in your house, can do this for you as well. So
Sweet. We'll quickly press play then. So this is a polite message to everyone during lockdown.
Thank you very much. Thank you so.
This audio didn't work. Why?
it did work, mate. It did work.
did it?
This one, mate,
Apologies.
yeah.
All right. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So this next one goes out to all those people out there, enjoying the beaches, having barbecues, meeting up with friends. Sing along if you know the words. Stay inside, you stupid knobheads. Next up.
There you go, mate. There you go. 15 seconds of gold for you.
There we go.
It was.
Have we lost Jake?
Are you ever back?
Yeah,
We're back. Yep.
Sorry, guys. I don't know what it was doing. Is it still playing something? Let's get rid of that. So, I mean, when you're messing about with it with equipment and stuff, it doesn't work. So we're back on the free screens or whatever you can see.
Yeah,
I'm not sharing anymore.
Yeah,
Sweet.
back to normal there.
Sweet. So, me and Catherine, when we said we were getting you on a guest, I shared everything that I could find with Simon about you. So we've been enjoying these. We've been just waiting for the next one to come out every time. So just before, we normally do it at the end, but plug where they can find this information. You've got a YouTube and Instagram. Where can people find you, Bryan?
Yeah, Instagram at Bryan Lacey. That's Bryan with a Y, Bryan Lacey MMA. On Facebook /Bryan Lacey MMA, and then on YouTube Bryan /Bryan Lacey. So all these little stupid videos go up there. Oh, and on TikTok now. On TikTok.
TikTok.
TikToks. You're shaking them.
Oh, show me age there. TikToks. Yeah, get your TikToks. Comedy and fresh breath all at the same time. On TikToks, you can get me on Bryan_Lacey. So. Yeah.
Sweet. So when who was your first gig for commentating on? Or was it commentating MMA first? Did you commentate on other things first, or was it MMA?
No, MMA. So I was doing I'd set up a podcast where I was talking to comedians, because I found a lot of comics were into combat sports. I also found that a lot of comics, there's a lot of martial artists out there. There's a lot of people that train, and so I just set up a podcast to talk to comics about fighting, about whether it's kickboxing, mixed martial arts, whatever. And then from that, I started to get fighters I talked to them as well. And one of the guys was Brad Pickett. He was one of my first interviews, and he was amazing. Like he gives so much. And I see it now. Now with the journey is we're really good mates. We commentate on ACA together. Like he's one of my best mates, which is amazing to say, because I used to watch him all the way back from Bodog to WEC and flying the flag around the world. But while I was doing that, I was interviewing fighters, and Matt Bourne, I got to give him a shout out. He gave me a press pass to go to Bama. So I went to Bama all by myself, a camera, me, never having done it before, stood in the media bit, interviewing fighters, and they got quite a good response. I always found, I think, again, I'd find out stuff about the fighters. So when I spoke to them, I didn't ask them the same questions everyone else did. I wasn't just saying, how's your weight cut going? How many pounds you got left to cut? Has it been a good camp? I would dig through their Facebook and I'd see that one of them did a competitive eating challenge 6 months ago, and he's so I'd ask him something stupid about that, or one of them has got a hobby doing whatever, and suddenly, rather than just churning out the same answers, you get people, you get them going, well, wait, and that was my in. That was my in, doing these interviews. So I did a few Bammers. Then they got me to do some pundit stuff for Bama. So I did my first thing with Andy Shepherd. So I got to stand there and sort of.
Who also commentates on WWE, Bryan.
He does, mate. He does, and this is a strange mix. So jumping from story to story, when I got married, 2012, I went off lovely honeymoon with my wife. We went to the Bahamas for a week, and then we had 2 weeks in Disney. That was our second part of it. And the first week we're at this place, and it was what are they called? Not beaches. It's called Sandals Resort. So they're advertised as these picturesque, perfect white beaches, the most romantic places you could ever take your loved one. And we get there, and the resort from the outside looks beautiful. It has got the white beaches, there's bars, and there's all that. And as we get closer, you can kind of see that it's not exactly what they set out. Basically, it's where Americans go for spring break. So we're there wandering in for our first bit of our honeymoon, and then there's fucking Tex from Ohio down in a bottle of Bacardi, and then wiggling his booty. You're walking like, well, this isn't the most romantic setting. But while we were there was a guy called, and he's now called Vic Joseph because he works for the WWE.
He does.
And we sat and we had a teppanyaki, and him and his wife were there. We got married on the same day. We were sharing these stories, and me and Vic, we were speaking to each other, and he was into wrestling. So I used to watch it years ago when I was a baby, Jake. But Macho Man Randy Savage, Mr. Perfect, all that sort of stuff. We were talking, and he said, I really want to get into doing WWE stuff. And I was like, well, mixed martial arts is what I love, and this is before I'd done it. And I said, that's what I love doing. I do this podcast and we speak to fighters. And then about 2 years ago, we would follow each other on social media. He got the WWE job. I got a job doing MMA, and then we met up in Florida and we sank beers, thinking from the chat we had where we were just two newlyweds talking about what we wanted to do with our life, to us both now sitting sharing a beer in Florida, him working for the WWE, me working for mixed martial arts promotions. It was crazy. But those two now, Andy Shepherd and Vic Joseph, they work very close together. So there's a little.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they were both. Well, Andy was doing the MCing for NXT UK. I've been to a few NXT UK shows in the Empress Ballroom in Blackpool, and Vic Joseph was doing the commentary. And I think around 6-7 months ago, when it went to Fox, SmackDown, and USA, anyway, Vic got the main job on commentary. So basically, it took like Michael Cole and JR's position on commentary. I think he's taking a break at the minute. I've not seen him for a while, but people have things going on in their lives, everything happens. But I feel like I warmed to him quite quickly. You could tell he was a fan, which is easy to connect to. Rather than I've seen them just throw some random guy in because he's done sport. You have to have that development. You have to know the characters. So the connection's crazy because I do enjoy watching Vic, and Andy's one of my favourites because he's English, and I've seen him connect with the crowd.
He's very English. He is the gentleman.
The gentleman side of him is when I went to the Empress Ballroom, it was like the taping side, and obviously in between breaks, he'd be in the ring just speaking to a free, and then he would just like interact with the crowd, and I thought that was really cool. So
he's a pro, mate. He's a pro, and he was, and it was great because he was the first guy I had to work with on camera first. So I did Bama first, and he was very giving. He's always been good. He's always good to work with. And then from that, I did the Wimp to Warrior thing. So Brad was the coach on Wimp to Warrior, where you train for 6 months, 22 weeks of the year. You train 4 a.m. till whatever time, 9 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning, and then at the end of the 6 months, you have a cage fight, so a mixed martial arts fight. And Brad, while I was doing these podcasts, he said to me, "Do you want to give this a go?" So I did. So I did that, and while I was doing that, that's when I got approached by ACB as it was then, and they kind of sort of said, "Do you want to come over and watch some Russians kick the shit out of each other?" I was like, "Yes, please. Yeah, I'll take
That's
that."
what I was gonna touch on. So you did Winter Warrior, so it's not like you've just stepped in the commentary. You've been through the process.
Yeah.
You've done a weight cut. You've done a training camp, a long training camp. 22 weeks is a long time. It's probably
Yeah.
3 or 4 training camps to some people. But how did you find that? It was with obviously John Kavanagh was the sort of creator of it, especially in Europe anyway. How did you find that, and did you feel like obviously that opened the door for ACB, but how did you find speaking to other people whilst doing it at the same time? How was it for you?
It's been invaluable. That's why I think training jiu-jitsu or doing anything where you kind of you get a feel for it. You don't just talk about it, you feel it. And that's the bit for me. It wasn't the training was really hard. The training is hard, and obviously it's nowhere near the level of even some of the amateurs that I see fighting on your show, Jake, at UKFC. But it gave me a real understanding of what fighters go through, and not just physically but mentally. Mentally, I really struggled with it. So I was older than a lot of the people. I got a little back injury during it, and I really struggled because I couldn't train as hard as I wanted. I couldn't roll as much, couldn't spar as much. So you're kind of nursing this, and that's just, I'm getting a tiny glimpse of me just giving it a go to see what it's like. And then you think about fighters who this is their career. It could be a big fight. It could be a title fight coming up, and they injure their foot or their toe or their ankle or their finger. And it gave me a massive understanding, not just for what they go through physically, but mentally as well. It's Brad uses the phrase a lot. He says fighting is 90% mental, just 10% physical. The mental side of it, trying to grasp that is it's crazy. It's hard to think about going to sleep at night thinking another guy's going to be training tomorrow to beat you up in 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever it is. And then on top of that, if you had an injury, which is stopping you training a little bit, it's for me, that gave me so much respect for fighters. And I think that's so important. It also just little things like when you train and you've never felt what it's like to be losing, what it's like to be under another human being and struggling for air and not trying to find something in you to make something happen. Knee on belly. I remember the first time anyone put knee on belly on me, I had no idea what that felt like. And it shocked me. I remember getting leg kicked for the first time. And I was like, how the fuck do people take 10, 12? So how did Tony Ferguson
Uriah Faber as well?
Oh, Aldo,
Yeah.
Uriah Faber, dude, things like that. You have no understanding of how bad it is, but just me getting a little flavour gave me a lot of respect, and hopefully it helped me verbalise a little bit as well, engage the audience about what that's like, about what when audience is saying it's a dull fight, they're just up against the cage. Do you have any idea how hard both of them are working for a millimetre in that position, for 1 millimetre to make something happen? And so yeah, it was a massive experience. Richie Cranny's the guy that runs it. John Kavanagh is the guy in Europe who's got that side of it. But it just gave me respect, 100%, 1,000% more respect for what fighters go through at any level in any sport where you are putting it all on the line and bearing yourself like that. It's madness.
I think like me and Simon, like this is what makes me a bit more, well, a lot more respect, just respectful stuff for you, Bryan, is that you've done everything to make sure you know what you're talking about. You're not just saying it because you get to commentate. You've lived through it, which I think is brilliant. I think that's what I think me and Simon get a lot of experience from. I think from me running events and him teaching, getting people prepped or asking people to do the events. You know how to approach people. Simon was it takedown? Yeah, it was takedown, wasn't it?
Yeah,
takedown middleweight champion. So he did 2 fights in one day,
mate.
So that Simon, how did you find fighting the twice in one day? Obviously, we both did it in the earlier takedowns, but for a belt.
You did it in a tournament, like
yeah,
two
fight tournament.
So takedown, when it first came out, was an amateur sort of concept. So you had 2 5-minute round fights, but with 2 different opponents. So you would fight, say, 11 o'clock with your first guy, and you might not fight your second guy for 3-4 hours. It's not even a tournament at this point.
Wow.
It's just to get the experience. But then at the Velodrome in Manchester, we got picked to a person from each weight, and I was second choice for featherweight, so I was what Mike Woodall's filling, wasn't I? And you were the middleweight at the time. So yeah, speak about how you found that side.
Yeah, it was different, like, because I'm one of them where when I go to compete, that little ball of anxiety absolutely cripples me, and it takes a round or two for me to actually loosen up and get into the mode for actually fighting or competing. So I think I found that first fight was a great one just to get rid of the cobwebs and get me into the mood, and then it made the final a lot easier. But like what's we've not mentioned is that in the first one, I actually nearly got knocked out in the first round. So I ended up getting like a stiff jab. My head snapped back, and I remember receiving the punch, and then looking at the footage, I shot in, got a takedown against the cage, and actually my next memory is being on top in mount, punching the guy's chest. So it's like, I think of having that initial fight there to get those nerves out of the way just helped me get into the ring.
So that was 2011, wasn't it? June 2011. So back then amateur, that was semi-pro amateur B rule, so it was no headshots on the ground, wasn't it? So this is to look around full circle, Brian. Do you know? I think you know Jamie Lester.
Not personally, but I know
so he was
Lester, yeah.
He was in the corner of the Cuban guy that fought Valyandis at Evoke last year. So Jamie won the welterweight title at takedown that same day. So it just shows like when I say I've not seen Jamie in years, and I was like, dude, what's going on? He lived in Spain for a long time, and then moved back home. So like middleweight champion, welterweight champion. I enjoyed fighting twice in the same day, but I feel like the gaps didn't help me. I think a tournament, I would want to get in there as fast as possible. Obviously, you need to recoup a little bit, but what was the final like for you going into there? Was you tired, Simon?
No, I was a lot better there mentally. Like I always struggled with going out there with the intention to hurt somebody. So I think it was after that tournament when I sort of made the decision that MMA is not quite for me. Like going in there trying to punch someone to knock them out, or like for me grappling is different. Like I can go out there and grapple in a tournament and have a bit of bad intention because I want to win. With MMA and striking, I always found it a little bit more difficult to get that change in mindset. But going into the final off the back of that kind of made it a little bit easier. But I resorted back to my grappling for that one instead of trying to stand up and exchange with him.
Madness.
So, Brian, what happened in yours then? Is there footage of this anywhere?
There's, do you know what? It was a fun fight. That's what I was really pleased with. I fought a guy called Lewis, who we were really good mates. We trained every day together, and then they put us together to fight each other. And he's a fireman from Chelsea, very strong, much stronger than me. And that's what I found out. Like he was that was a massive difference. He could just control me on the ground. I nearly got him in 2 triangles straight away. He took me down. I put a triangle up. Just didn't quite know at the little details to cinch it up. So it was on my foot rather than on my shin, and I was pulling my toes instead of pulling my shin to try and tighten it down. And then I got out of it, and then I put him straight back in it, and I thought I've got it this time. And then he pulled out of it again, and then it was back and forth. He was just a lot stronger than me, so he could control where the fight goes. But what was great was we had like. I'm glad it was the fight it was. If it had happened, that triangle happened in the first 15 seconds. He took me down. I managed to get it set up, and that would have been it. But then we had a fight. We had like there was bits on the ground where I was able to sweep him, reverse him. He was able to get back on top. Then we stood at toe to toe and we threw some proper shots. I remember one point he was on top and he hit me, and my head bounced off the canvas. And this is the thing that I remember. These are the things that I remember most as far as just looking back as a fight. First of all, I forgot to breathe for the first 30-40 seconds. I think I held my breath because you the adrenaline, I'm not used to it. I'm not used to fighting somebody like that. So I was out of breath to start with. Then you get your second wind, and the other bit I noticed was adrenaline is the greatest drug on the planet. I remember he hit me with this shot, and he straight right onto the ground. My head bounced off the canvas, and the noise was ridiculous. And the whole crowd went, ooh. And I remember it. Because then I heard my wife and my sister scream, and they were cage side. And I just wanted to look at them and go, I'm all right. Because you don't feel it. It's the weirdest thing. I didn't feel any pain while it was going on. And all those little moments I remember. But he won that. We had, we went one round each in the first and second, and then there was should be 2 rounds, but then there was a deciding round. They brought us back out. We did another one, and he won that on points. And it was one of those things where it happened so quick. Like I remember the whole day. I remember going on the train, and I was sat, and there was families on the train going for a day in London, and I was heading to York, and then my bag and a gum shield, and I'm off to fight a man in a cage, and there's a 4-year-old crying because his brother's just chewed the crayon that he wanted to use, and I'm like, this is madness. And this is
you went to this kid, I've got fucking problems.
Yeah, listen,
I'm going to get my face smashed in later.
Listen, mate. I don't know if you've ever seen firemen in Chelsea. They're massive. But for me, it was. I'm happy it was a good fight. I'm happy it was a long fight. But yeah, I lost on points, and it's one of those where I don't remember lots in it. I remember the start. I remember some of the big exchanges, but everything just becomes a blur. And that's because for me, even though we trained for 6 months, I hadn't fought anybody like that ever. And that whole thing just makes it an absolute blur. So for these people that you see in there, and they're so calm and they're cerebral, and the choices they make, and like even your instincts kick into, you know what you got to do. You know you're in danger. And that I didn't have any of that. I didn't, and it's one of those things where, again, it's same as comedy. The more time you spend training, drilling, more it becomes your lifestyle, not just a job, a vocation, a career. More it is you than the free you are when you do it. And I see that in fighters as well. I've watched even on UKFC fighters that come out and it's their first amateur fight, and then you watch them 3, 4, 5 fights down the line, and they've learned who they are. They've learned their style. They learn what they're good at. They're free and they're loose, and they embrace the moment rather than fear it. And it's another side of it where you can have nothing but respect for these crazy humans who decide to do these crazy things.
Yeah, I think I was a bit like what Simon said before in relation to knowing after a certain fight that wasn't for you, that the striking. I was fighting in Evoke. This was March 2012, and I was facing a guy, and he was ripped, 6-pack, muscular, but a mate that I trained with previously a year or 2 before actually fought him, but at the time he was fighting out of Steve's gym reps, called Joe Lemberger, or Dr. Joe. He took the guy down and submitted him. And I used to toy with Joe. Well, toy is probably a strong word, but I used to do really well against Joe, tap him a lot. But that's when we were all proper white belts. I thought, I can take this guy. He's a bit stronger. I'll tire him out. Mate, he hit me so hard. After, I think, 1 strike, I started taking shots for takedowns from like 5 miles away. I didn't want to get hit. And Ian Freeman was commentating on the fight, and obviously watching it back in hindsight, he was like, Jake knows what he's doing. What he's like is in a training camp. He's going through the motions, not going for the killer instinct. And I remember second round, I picked him up, or I took him down, and then he literally pushed me off like I was a fly. And I remember my head going, I don't know what to do now. I've got no... And then in the third round, I shot, and he hit me with some uppercut hook. And it was like my head was in a fish tank, and the referee stopped it. And I literally looked at the referee and went, oh, fuck, you stop that.
I'm going to look like I'm complaining, but I'm saying thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
I've got to nip to the loo quickly, gents. I'll be back in a second.
No worries. No, me and Bryan
Lacey with a full pot of coffee. That's what he did. He came in swaggering. Before we started recording his show, I got a full coffee, cafetiere. There you go.
We'll carry on anyway, Bryan. So you were approached by who was it that approached you for the ACB role?
So a guy called Paul King was the guy who was working with them at the time, and he managed fighters with HD management. So he spoke to us and he set it all up. He's the one that gave us the gig. The first gig was Rostov on Don, and I went there with Brad as well. So that was good because Brad was training me for the Winter Warriors. So while we were out there, we're in this Russian city. Me and Brad Pickett don't speak any Russian, no idea who anyone is really. Or was that the first one? No, the first one was Georgia. That's the first one. Georgia with Luke Barnett. And I'd never met him before. I knew of him, obviously. And we landed. And Luke came. We were waiting in the airport. And the police collected us. We got put in the back of a police car. They're the ones who picked us up. They drove us to a hotel. There was when we got there was no room for us. They'd forgotten to book a room. So they said, you have to wait till the morning. There'll be a room for you. So we sat up all night, me and Luke talking, got on really well. And this was when he was Venator middleweight champion.
Yes, in Italy.
Just out of the UFC. And we got, finally, it was like 8, 9 in the morning. They said, we got you a room ready. So we'd sat up, we'd flown in, we'd sat up all night. Luckily, we got on really well. We were really good mates now. And when they opened the door to the room, it was one double bed.
So you're getting even closer now.
So my first night with Luke Barnett, they put us in a double bed, and I was like, we'd had a lot of jokes during the night. We were just enjoying it. We were having a giggle, and then we got into bed, and I got my phone to take a picture, and he just looked at me and went, "No, no, that's not happening. That's not happening." So, yeah. But he's a gentleman in the bedroom. I'll just tell you that. That's all I'm going to say. He's very giving.
A little spoon. That's the question.
That's mate. He's 6'7", and he can kick the crap out of me. I'm the baby spoon in this, mate. Yeah, I got no choice.
So with ACB, so that's obviously it's been renowned, but at the time it's Absolute Championship. Bakut, is that how you pronounce it?
Bakut, yeah, Bakut.
Yeah. So that's a place in Russia or Dagestan?
No, Chechnya. So Bakut isn't a place. Bakut means eagle in Chechen or Russian.
Ah, right, okay.
And it's one of like the emblems for that country because they've risen. That country's obviously been through many wars, and it was in their civil war against Russia where Chechens were literally removed from Chechnya. So all of them were taken out. So and that's why you see so many around the world. And that's one of the things that there's obviously one of the things that I've learned most about these people, especially the younger ones, the ones that I get to work with, some of these people that I think I've lived a bit of a life. I've done whatever, and I've had some hardships, I've had some good times and all that. And then you'll speak to somebody who's 25, 26 years old, and they've watched their next door neighbour's house being blown up, or their neighbour's been executed, or they've had to flee and make a life in Switzerland, then work their way back. And you kind of go, you've got no idea what these individuals from this country have had to go through to be who they are. And whenever I've been there, the people that look after us go above and beyond to make it, to make us welcome, to sort of show other sides to their country from some of the bad stuff that gets shown. But yeah, it's been one of I've made some of my best friends from these countries, these places that I never dreamed that I'd ever go ever in my life, would even have a grasp of where they were on a map. And now I've got friends that will be lifelong friends. I hope that's the case from these crazy places. So yeah.
Oh, wow.
So obviously one of the lifelong friends is Paul Doyle. Did you know him before ACB, or was it you?
Doyle, Lee Doyle.
I had Paul in my head. Lee's going to batter me for that. Paul Doyle's a friend, an old friend of mine. Sorry, Lee.
Do you know, I never knew.
They'll never hire me again.
Lee's a legend. So Lee is literally he's a fireman. So he is actually a hero. Some of the stories he's told me that he's had to do as a fireman, some of the stuff he's seen, some of the stuff he's had to cope with. You kind of go, well, you get so frustrated when you see. Like right now, governments have made more cuts. They're now doing full 12-hour shifts. They've got less men on the fire truck. All this stuff, which is putting lives at risk. And like Lee is somebody that I knew of. I didn't know him before I got into MMA. So I used to watch the weigh-ins for Bama. Jude would be the matchmaker, and he'd be standing in the face-offs, and there would always be this muscly, grumpy guy sat next to him, writing down the weights and all that. And I always kind of you got the image that he was a bit of a tough man, bit of a prick. And so when I went to work at Bama, he was there, and I he is one of the most lovable idiots I've ever met in my life. And my wife is head over heels in love with him. She's because he's just a gem. He is an absolute gem. And my greatest joy on this planet is using him as a toy. Is like literally embarrassing him in any country I can do. At airports, so if we go and check in, my favourite one, we flew to Azerbaijan, and there was no one on the flight, so I got there first, and at the check-in there's no queue. So I spoke to every single one on the check-in desk, and I showed him a picture of Lee, and I said, just when this guy turns up, he's going to turn up, you'll know him, big lump of a man, hard-looking bastards. Just when he turns up, could you just say, could you go see security because your boyfriend's been pulled aside, there's an issue with his passport. And I thought, there's no way they're going to do that. There's no way they're going to do that. So I went and sat on the, got through security, went and sat there thinking, no, they won't do that. And then I just get this message going, you prick. So as he walked up, they did exactly that. They said, sorry, sir, we're going to have to send you to security. Your boyfriend. His passport's got some issues and you've got to go and see him. So that's one of them. In Moscow, there's an Indian restaurant that stays open 24 hours a day. I've told them he's a world champion. He is the world champion of mixed martial arts. So every time he goes there, he has to do like 20 minutes of photos. Literally, the chefs come out, all the waiting staff. The people have phoned their friends and family to get them to the restaurant to take photos. I've got video. I just sit back. I video all this, and it's. He hates me for it. My wife goes, "What have you done to him this time?" In Australia, I had the taxi driver pick him up with a big sign saying, "The UK national squat champion Lee Doyle, welcome to Australia." Anything that I can do that makes him massive, because I'm an extrovert. He's a tough sort of introvert. And anything that I can do to embarrass him, that's my main joy in life. That's brilliant. That's my favourite thing.
First time I worked with him was about 4 years ago when I was pulled in as commission to help him. It was when it was in Bolton, so it was a bit bigger arena than I was previously, and I was helping him sort things out. And he knew my connections and stuff, so he knew he could trust me. But I didn't know him that well. But I loved how much he trusted me straight away, because he sort of left me to it and was like, right, this is what I'm going to do. And he sort of babied everyone else. And I thought, that's quite respectful for that. And then he contacted me, I think it was through David Leatherby, and was like, can you judge on WCFC and commissioning? And I was like, yeah, of course I can for you. Not a problem. It's around the corner from Manchester. That's fine. He went, can you find another judge that we can trust? So rang a friend in, Tim. He's done judging with me before. That was brilliant. And then I think it was the next show. I think he was probably with you guys for ACB or ACA. And he was like, I've got Ambler. Is it Rob Ambler? I don't want to say the wrong name yet. He was sort of in his place to sort everything out, but he sort of said, right, let Rob do the commission. You sort out the cage side, make sure everything's running smoothly. And I thought that was a lot of respect for someone that I've only met 3, 4, 5 times, but I've spoke to a lot. And I thought that was really cool. So I've got a lot of time for Paul Doyle.
Is it Paul Doyle? Paulie D. He's good. He's very good, mate.
Yeah,
he runs his commission really well. He makes the show, he runs the show really well for any platform he works for, any promotion. Sorry, Rob Ambler's another one though. Rob Ambler, so he trains at the same place that I go, Andy Roberts, and Rob is somebody that obviously he's a tough little bulldog of a man. He's wide, he's wider than he is tall, and but he commissions the fighters, and people don't know what commission is. So basically, they will, when the fighters arrive, they will walk them through to their dressing room. Then they'll stay with them, so they'll make sure there's nothing dodgy going on. They'll make sure they get their hands wrapped. They make sure they're ready to walk at the right time. So it's an important job. It's very important, and you got to look like if you look at the UFC, whenever they walk in doing the walkouts, you got these big burly men walking down, and that's their job. So what they also have to do is in between rounds, they have to stand there and make sure the fighters aren't doing anything, like nothing is in the water bucket or there's no dodgy stuff going on. But whenever I can, I catch Rob's eye. Now Rob tries to stay very professional, but I blow him kisses, I throw him grenades from my heart, I'm doing all this stuff. So you just see this man, watch out for it on one of the ACAs. He tries not to catch my eye, but I'll do as much as I can to try and break that hardcore image that he's got. While the show's going on. So I have a bit of fun while we're doing it, I'll tell you that.
So ACB in all around Europe, really. They came to Manchester in March 2017, I want to say. That was cool experience. I blagged my way through that arena. I just used a bit of my confidence. I brought a camera, got a VIP pass, but it was for I think they were quite strict. They only let you either backstage or front of house. I just hid it behind the camera and just walked, because obviously I knew Rich Cadden, knew Ambler, knew Lee. I just literally worked with people I knew, and I walked out with like Steve and Aaron Abbey when Aaron was facing against Hignett, and just literally sat on the media, and like Jamie Hayes looking at me going, "Oh, why are you here?" I'm like, I just do what I want today. I'm just literally going everywhere. Spoke to you. It was cool. Obviously, it was having it in Manchester, my home arena. That was quite cool. So of ACB then, when it transitioned to ACA, did anything change for you? Did it was it just business as usual, or was it completely new management that you had to get used to and get to know? Like you said, was it King before you mentioned? Is he gone now?
Yeah, so it's changed a lot. It's definitely changed a lot. They've pulled back as far as number of shows. They've pulled back on territories that they go to. So with ACB, we went to Australia, we went Brazil, all over the world. America, we did California as well. So we did all those places. Now, as they're rebuilding, as they took a 6-month break, and they came back as ACA. And they are now doing probably between 15 to maybe 17 shows, which is still a lot for stadium-size shows. But a lot of them are based in Russia. Poland is another hub that they've got there. Maybe they'll try a few other places in and around. Kazakhstan is amazing. First of all, the arena is phenomenal. The crowd is crazy in Kazakhstan. We did our show there. I think that was the last one we just did, and the Almaty arena was beautiful. And the crowd were phenomenal. I think ACB, they went everywhere because they could go everywhere. They could afford to go wherever they wanted to go. It didn't really matter how big a crowd they got in there. What they've done now is they've realized they've got real hubs. So Russia, when we go to places like Krasnodar, St. Petersburg, Moscow, we've got superstars in that. What would be a superstar for KSW in Poland is equivalent to what happens in Russia for them. Poland as well, we've got big fighters like Peter Struess, who's massive over there. So I think they've reined it in. But for me, actually, what it's done is it's done what it needs to do. It's putting crowds. Like you go to an arena and you look at it and you think, well, this is a big arena. This is Kazakhstan, 10,000 people, and we got 8,500 in when we did it there. Before you go to places like Australia, and you might struggle to get 1,000 because they don't know the brand, they don't know the fighters, the stories haven't been told. So they've taken the steps back. They've cut the shows down so they can focus a little bit more on promoting them properly. But their plan is to start building back up and to start going to some of those other places. They've got a Brazilian champion, Felipe Froes. Diego Brandao as well is one of the fighters on ACA.
Now, yeah.
So they're trying to. I think they recouped. They pulled it right back, and then they're slowly building up, which I think is the right thing. So they kind of exploded as this new promotion, as this big force in MMA as ACB, and now they've dropped it back, and they're starting to build up. But when you get there, the level of the fights, mate, is unreal. I've sat there with Brad Pickett, I've sat there with Frank Mir, I've sat there with people who fought all over the world on different promotions, and the one thing that they always say is like the level is crazy. These fighters coming out of these small areas like Kazakhstan, like Dagestan, Chechnya, Ossetian in Russia, that area of Russia, there are a total unmined set of fighters in those regions that are Habib-esque. And I'm not just talking about their fighting style. You've got some great strikers in there as well, but of a level where they could dominate. You look at the UFC now, some of the biggest names, Magomed Sharipov. He was the 145-pound champion. I got to call one of his fights before he went to the UFC. Phenomenal, crazy amount of talent. Peter Yan,
yeah, I was
as well.
Say him, yeah.
He's another one. And if you want to give a shout out to anyone in UK MMA, watch Ed Arthur fight Peter Yan. That was 2017, I think. 2017. I miss Ed Arthur. Ed Arthur he sold a fight. His stare downs were immense, and he took Peter Yan for 3 rounds. 3 rounds. It was a tough fight for him. But Peter Yan, you've seen how badass he is. But you've got a level of fighter coming out of ACA, and I think I'm always it's always one of those things where you sit back and you're on the plane coming home, or you're watching the fights back, and you kind of go, that the level is just crazy, absolute madness.
Sweet. So, what? So, obviously, like I said, it's absolute championship. Berkut, did you say before? Yeah. So, now it's Akhmat. Is that a place or a name?
Name. So Akhmat is the son of the father of the president of Chechnya. So he's the one that's brought peace to the Chechens in the war against Russia. So 1995, and he was assassinated in a football stadium in Grozny. So the stage was blown up, and he was there. But he's like an emblem for the country. So it switched from Bakut to Akhmat when they changed names.
Did that guy have another organisation? All right, the guy that owns it, and it was sort of merged.
So there was there were two promotions in Chechnya: WFCA and Absolute Championship Berkut. And Berkut was the one that went around the world, and WFCA stayed in Grozny, stayed in Russia. And now so WFCA and ACB at the time came together, and that's why they did all the fights between champion versus champion. So
yes, I remember that.
Yeah, so they put the ACB champion against the WFCA champion, and to see who took the belts.
Sweet. So, two more things we want to touch on before we let you go. Because obviously I was looking at nearly an hour and a half now. I'll quickly screen share it because it makes it easier. They've just announced today or last night the secret card for UFC 249. Have you seen this, Bryan?
Yeah, yes, mate. I have seen this. Dana White, the Bond villain, buying an island to fly in fighters from all around the world for him to watch without any audience beat the crap out of each other. And this one is going to happen somewhere on the west coast of America. It's madness, mate. How are they training? How are you?
I thought that.
How you truly like? I don't get it. I honestly I don't get how.
Episode, I think.
Say again.
I think we touched a little bit on this, sort of like saying how they could navigate around this for the training wise, and unless they've got themselves in some sort of like big tough house where they're quarantining with a huge team of fighters.
Yeah.
Are some of these going in cold? Like it's going to be interesting to say like. It's going to be an interesting card, but like you said, I don't understand how any of these are training.
Considering the amount of mechanisms that I've got to go into even making this work, the first thing, like how they're going to train, who's going to be the athletic commission, because no athletic commission will cover it. That's the reason why they couldn't even do the Apex in Nevada. And you think the Nevada State Athletic Commission are best mates with the UFC because of how much money they bring into Vegas and stuff like that, and the Nevada region, and all over the world, really. Because they seem to take Nevada over to like Europe when they're having UFC events. So I don't. How do they pull this off without a commission, or have they got a commission? Has anyone been told that?
No idea. That's one of the big questions a lot of people are asking. Like, how will they do it? Obviously, if you are in California, which is that West Coast, that's got one of the strictest commissions. So, but also, how do they commission? How do you? Yeah, because you're not just talking about the fighters. You're bringing in TV, camera crews, lighting, all the backstage people, your PR people. You're bringing in if just the athletic commission. You're bringing in the individuals that are going to have to manage the fighters between the cage and backstage, yet alone the weigh-ins and all that. And there's no way, it's impossible for you to be able to say with 100% certainty that every single one of those people has not come into contact with the virus. And I don't know.
So UFC 249 is now headlined by well, do you still class him as former interim champion, because he's never lost it? He's just had it for a long time. So Tony Ferguson, previous interim champion, against Justin Gaethje, who was what was it? The promotion now. World Series of Fighting, won a lightweight champion around that time with like Lance Palmer and stuff. He was in with them. So his only 2 losses are legit losses in the UFC. Tone is a different animal. He's a workhorse. It's a very different stylistic matchup. It could be fight of the century, or it could be a quick finish. What are your 2 thoughts?
I'll jump in because sorry, mate, because it's one of those fights that when you look at it, like if you show me that, I'm staring at it right now. They're side by side, Ferguson versus Gaethje. What a beautiful fight that is. What a 2 very individual fighters, 2 people with their own style, all out war. Like they're never in dull fights, either of them. That is one thing you can say, which is great. So they found an awesome fight to fill this card. But the thing that makes me a little bit sad, and thinking longer term when we do get the machine rolling again, and you're staring at that unique fighter of Khabib down the road, you're almost killing one of the most tantalizing matchups you could make against him, because whoever wins this will end up fighting Khabib at some point. Whoever loses this has got to work their way back up. Whereas before this, we were talking about Ferguson with his unique ground game, with his cardio, just being that crazy dynamic fighter that he is. He offers a lot of issues for Khabib. Then you look at Gaethje, everybody was saying, even Dustin Poirier was saying, the person that we think could give Khabib the most problems is Gaethje. Everyone knows as a stand-up fighter, as this someone who comes forward, who brings pressure, those leg kicks, the crazy sticking his chin out, taking a punch to give one. But his wrestling pedigree is one of the best in the UFC, hands down, and he just doesn't use it. It's one of those weapons he doesn't use, but he would have to use it against Khabib. He'd be forced to. So you got 2 amazingly unique problems for Khabib to have to solve if he gets to fight him. But because you've put them in together, you're going to lose one of them. One of them's going to be further away to fighting Khabib if they lose this fight.
Definitely. I think as well, going off the back of that, like Ferguson's had quite a challenging time as of recently. So like it'd be interesting to sort of see how it impacts his training camp, even his mindset coming into this fight. Like it's not going to be the most easy road back to sort of the top, the way that everything's been played out, unfortunately, for the past year or so.
Definitely.
So if he comes in and does defeat Gaethje, it could be the sort of fight that sort of gets him back into form for Khabib. Or, like you said, it could be the start of the end of his career. Like if Gaethje comes through here and pulls it out and beats him in like a dominating fashion, it's just going to smash up the thoughts of this Ferguson fight, which, like you said, presents this really interesting individual challenge for him.
The other thing I was going to say as well is I've been in places where there's been not a big crowd for a fight, like big arenas where there's not been a big crowd, and it, like watching the card, crowds add something. There's an energy that comes with them, and
the 12 man in football.
And with fighting, it's real. It is real. There's an energy. I've seen fighters put fans on the edge of their seats, make them tear the roof off with what's going on in front of them, and people respond to that. And you got to wonder what it's going to be like for them fighting in this empty arena. You will hear everything the corner says. Somebody drops a plastic cup 10 feet away, you'll hear it on the audio. And it's one of those things where they're going to have to get used to that as well. They're used to, when they go to war, walking out into these arenas, these auditoriums, these gladiatorial auditoriums where the crowd are a part of the energy, where it's part of the process. And maybe that's going to, will it affect people? What's that going to be like? They're at the end of the card as well.
Yeah, so apologies, it's not on purpose because I'm a wrestling fan. Because WrestleMania this weekend had no crowd. Obviously when you listen to the commentary, you can't hear the commentary in live. You can just hear it through the mic. But when they were showing a replay, you could literally hear Michael Cole shouting it, and you're just like, the rest. Obviously, it's all fake. But I mean. If you're a commentator and you're saying like, oh, Daniel Cormier, what would you do in this position? And then the fighters can hear that, or you can literally hear each corner. It creates another added element of what you're not used to. Does that throw you? Does that help you? You're right.
Yeah, it's going to be it's so interesting. I've been at I did a show with Frank, and it wasn't a big Frank Mir, and it wasn't a big crowd, and the fighters they weren't right in front of us, but they were close. And Frank was talking through what they had to do, and you saw him do it. And afterwards he kind of went, I was just commentating, but it felt like I cornered him through that submission, and that's going to be something they're going to have to get used to as well. It's also something the commentators have to get. It's going to be interesting to see how that affects them, if at all. Probably not that they are the cream of the crop, but you kind of there's a noise when you're doing fight shows. The crowd you're around, when you got your headphones on and you're in the zone and all that. It's such a strange entity. I'm going to watch 100%. I'm gagging to watch some live MMA, but there's so many weird angles to this that make it different from any other UFC card that has ever been before it.
So obviously we got the card up in front of us. Obviously, people that listen to the audio side would go to the UFC Twitter and you can see it. It got released, I think it was late last night. So looking up and down this card, is there any fights? It's a stat card in my eyes. Is there any fights that stick out that you think, that's going to be tasty?
Oh, mate, Luque versus Price, Nico Price versus Vicente Luque, both are just awesome, amazing fighters. Stevens versus Qatar. Stevens is just one of the scariest punchers on the planet. Those two for me on the undercard. As soon as that came out, I looked at that and I was like, those two are solid fights for what is a strange card. But both of those, I would say, would be my two favourite picks.
I think as well, my Jit side is quite interested in the Hall Jacare fight.
Nice. Yes.
I can see Jacare taking this away, but it'll be interesting if they do get into a grappling exchange, how that's going to play out, especially with strikes. And I'm interested in seeing Namajunas. Namajunas fight. Yeah.
Yes, great shout.
Do you think the last time they fought, was it the Andrade that she powerbombed her more or less and knocked her out? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So it's like, where's your mindset from that? I'm sure.
Is she going to let go of the Kimura?
Yes. Yeah.
It's like you've been out a while. She's been out a while. That was her. I think it was her last fight, her last defeat, and then I'm sure the fight before that was the whole Conor McGregor Khabib in Brooklyn with the trolley going through.
Trolley.
Yeah. So like you've gone from the trolley to when you got knocked out, and then you returned into an arena. It's like where her head's gonna have. It's just like the last three fights, and that's a big element changed for her.
Well, she said she was going to retire. She said that last fight she was done. She wanted to do other stuff with her energy, and there's always that roller coaster that comes with the emotion.
It's hard to
after
retire.
the fight.
Yeah.
Just
I think though,
go on.
Maybe she's taking this time that she's had away from the sport though and from the limelight, maybe to work on that aspect of things, because especially the way that she lost and sort of the backlash of the media and everything else that came from it. I think maybe hopefully she's taking this time to get some professional help with it and start to rebuild that mindset to come in and be that Rose that we saw sort of just dismantle their opponent.
Thug Rose.
I was going to say that DC.
Rose.
Fuck Rose.
That's like one of my favourite commentators. That is he has jumped forward, just passion, and that sums it up. That one phrase where he just repeats Thug Rose again and again and again. I think he's a real find for the UFC. Him and Joe Rogan are superb together. But yeah, I hope we see it. Rose Namajunas is her story special, her fighting style special. She's different. There's that awesome picture where they're at a UFC and she's in the crowd and she's sat next to, I think it's Holly Holm and was it Young Jacek or another very pretty UFC fighter, and they pan across and Holly Holm and flick the hair and smile at the camera, and Namajunas just does a death stare. I ain't playing this game. I ain't gonna be a Barbie doll. Then she just shaves her head. She goes, well, what's the point of me having hair? It gets in the way. Shaves her head. She's different, and I think she's. I think she's special in a lot of ways. So I'm hoping she comes back. Andrade is a powerful, scary fighter, but I think Namajunas, if she can put her skills together, not make silly mistakes like hanging on to Kimura, I hope she gets back up there, because we need that sort of person in the sport. We need those role models, those inspiration stories, those underdogs to come back, because that's what makes it.
I think looking at the undercard for me, I'm not the biggest fan, but something always happens in the Hardy fights. Whether he fights bums and they just don't look good, or whether he gets disqualified, or
whether he has an inhaler between rounds.
Yeah. So it's just what's next? So I think apart from that, I think I always enjoy watching Hernandez, because I think he's sort of the next sort of cream of the crop coming through the lightweight division. I think he's cool to watch. And then Vera and Borg, I think that could be. I think especially that Borg now in the bantamweight division, he seems quite comfortable. I like watching that style, so I think Vera and Borg could possibly fight the night in my eyes.
Yeah. It's you know what? It's a great card, mate. It's a great card, but what makes it so interesting is just the circumstances. That's what.
Yes.
This is a top UFC pay-per-view on any any day of the month, but because of all this Corona stuff going around, until we see the first man walk, none of us are sure this is going down.
I was going to say that. It's literally like, what was it? Obviously, the Ferguson Khabib situation was always like, it's until it happens, and it's a bit like Dominic Cruz. Every time he seemed to get injured when he was facing what's he called? That's suspended at the minute, former bantamweight champion.
Former banter. Oh, Cody Garbrandt. Oh no, TJ Dillashaw.
TJ Dillashaw. He was supposed to be fighting him, and then literally every post that came from social media with them two, and my heart sank like Cruz is injured again. And then it finally happened, and I was like until you see that, I was literally thought that like Cruz might stub his toe on the way into the cage or something like that's how daft it would be. But it's what we got now. We've got 11 days. It's something to look forward to a little bit. We've got no sort of sport at the minute. I
think we just stay live for 11 days. We don't move. We get our wives and loved ones to bring us food. I just need to be near people, guys. All right. So 11 days. You all right with this? Everyone down?
I think we can get there. We can get there just about, I think.
So what we'll do before we close up shop, because Bryan, you've been an amazing guest so far. This could be the interesting bit, though. We'll hit the questions. Simon, I don't know if you've got the questions up on your phone or.
I've got a few here. Or should we get a screen share so we can pick a?
I won't screen share because I want Bryan to be on the spot. So I'll do one, okay. And we'll go vice versa. So Simon, you go first if you want, pal.
All right. So let's have a look. Here's a good one here. So best fight you've seen live.
Oh, best fight I've seen live. Actually, it's got to be Marat Balayev versus Salman Jalmandayev, which was ACA 93. Marat Balayev is one of these stories that I tell people every time. Balayev, he's 40-some years old. He went to prison for 10 years. Before that, he was a wrestler from Ossetian. And then there was a lot of prejudice against that area in the world. So when it came to the Olympic picks, which is what he wanted to get to, the coach said he'd never let anyone from Ossetian represent the country. So his dreams were dashed by this individual. He went into the army, got kicked out of the army, and then turned to some crime, got put in prison, like a Russian prison, mate. A Russian prison in the middle of nowhere. Spent 10 years smoking and trying to keep himself. He was sentenced for 5 years. His cellmate got in a fight, and he helped protect him. They extended his prison time by another 5 years. He spent the full 10 years in prison. He came out. He got a job helping at his old coach's gym, basically mopping the mats, helping with some of the wrestling technique, doing that sort of stuff. Fights came up, and the coach said he was too old, but the promoter said we need someone. He stepped in, and I think he was at 4-0 when ACA needed somebody to come to Sochi. And on 24 hours notice, if I can find the thing, I'll send you it. But he said, I'll cut weight and I'll make it. I'll come down there. He cut a ridiculous amount of weight. His picture went viral afterwards. He won the fight, worked all the way up to claiming the ACB title, and then lost it to the guy he beat, which was Yusuf Raisov in the rematch. Came back and fought the WFCA former champion, which is Salman Jalmandayev.
And every fight Marat Balayev fights in is a war. It's like he fought Diego Brandao last, and he was just, when he does these takedowns, he was screaming, and it was something weird and crazy to watch. But against Zalmandayev, he got leg kicked, second kick of the fight that broke his is it the tibia or the fibia, the one that doesn't support?
The fib, that one.
The fib broke the fibia, had to switch to southpaw. 5 rounds went against this guy, cut up, beaten up, and lost the fight by millimeters. Lost the fight. Man. And they both, like, the guy dominated the first, Zalmandayev dominated the first maybe 8-9 minutes of the fight, battered him. He was broken, and you thought there's no way. And from somewhere, whatever the spirit was that got him through 10 years of prison came out, and it was it's just one of the most epic journeys in a fight I've ever seen. And he was that close. That was for the first ACA title at featherweight. And he lost it by millimeters. But the end picture, they're both bloodied, they're both beaten, they're both like just sat holding each other. And I still remember just standing. I almost forgot to commentate. You kind of go, say something. So that fight, without a doubt, is the craziest and the best fight I've had the luck of sitting and calling.
What we'll do then, we'll have to find that fight and we'll post it on our page and let people watch it. That'll be pretty cool.
I'll send you it, mate. No worries.
Sweet. The next question from Beverly. In your opinion, who's the best fighter you've watched live and what makes him so good? So I'll sort of extend that a little bit. So pick a pro and then pick an amateur.
Ooh, who's the best fighter I've watched live? That is a very difficult, because there's different moments that have different impacts on you. Like there's fighters you got to think like Peter Yang. When I saw him fight, I thought he was special. Magomed Sharipov. It's weird to watch him fight. He's got a very lackadaisical sort of demeanor, and when he fights, it doesn't feel like he's doing much. But the damage he causes, like he did a spinning heel kick to the body to this Brazilian fighter that he fought on ACB, and it came from nowhere, and it almost looked slow, but it was it was fast because the guy just dropped. So there's fighters like that which have got these immense amounts of talent. There's a guy called Rustam Kerimov, used to be the ACA bantamweight champion, and I imagine he's now going to be in the UFC. If he comes to the UFC, just watch how good this guy is. He's undefeated. I think he's 13-0. He's had real fights against there's no padding in that career, and he's something special. Dovlatjan Yagshimoradov, he's the light heavyweight champion. Watched him fight for the first time in Vienna, and I thought it's just this chubby Turkistan fighter coming in, and then these spinning kicks come from nowhere, and you kind of go, and then he marches his way to the title. So on that side, you look at talent and you look at them fighting on these massive shows, and then you get the buzz of watching Connor Hitchens fight in Preston, with a crowd behind him, and you feel it. You feel like, and you see him do these crazy stuff. He was in a war in his last fight. He's pieced up people that you really rate as fight. Mark Andrews is a solid fight. Like,
was that the body shot?
The body shot. But you look at his record and you think, oh, he's maybe. I've seen him. He takes no easy fights, and I thought that was going to be a tough test, but Connor came through that. And then you look at other fighters where you are lucky to be where you are, like Aaron Abbey, being any part of that young man's story, being even close to him, being able to call him a friend or somebody that you know is nuts. And for me, one of my and it still is, and I think it will be my favourite moment of my journey in MMA is getting to announce him coming in, because Lee Nicholson was injured. He'd done his back, so he couldn't MC the show.
4 months ago today.
4 months ago today. So I got to announce Aaron Abbey coming back into the ring and call his fight after he had spent 2 years out fighting cancer, despite with all the stuff against him, coming through life with cystic fibrosis and championing or being an advocate for how you can live life with something like that. So those moments. So I haven't given you a proper answer there for the professionals. What I'm saying is there's moments and there's times and places where you see things special happening.
Oh, definitely. You've mentioned some really good fighters there and some really amazing moments, actually. So anybody who's out there is interested, I'd highly recommend researching all the names that have just been mentioned.
Cheers, definitely.
Man.
Simon, next question.
Oh, here's a good one then. So, how like this one's from Damie. So, do you find it difficult not to mix comedy with commentating, especially considering the some of the compromising situations that might happen during a fight?
So I remember. Do you know what? What I found is with comedy and with commentating, if you are yourself, if you be yourself, that's the best thing you can be. Don't try and be something else. So in my life, I will make jokes, and that will be whether I'm on stage, sat with my wife watching a TV program, or sat beside a cage calling a fight. If I see something happen, I'll use. There's obviously a level of professionalism within that. But I have done stuff like that. I got a few tweets off of one where it was ACB 70 in Sheffield, and someone got a cup kick and it made just this noise, and my instant reaction was somebody on row 70 just ordered some peanuts. So there we go. That's it. And it was just you just say it, and then I opened my Twitter and there was loads of people had screenshotted it and whatever else. But yeah, it's me. I'm going to make jokes. I will always, if I see something funny, I'll make it. I obviously will be professional and do the job I'm supposed to do. But it's like Daniel Cormier. He didn't script Thug Rose. He didn't sit there and think when she wins I'm going to shout that. He just felt it and said it, and that's the same whether I'm doing comedy or commentary.
Oh, definitely.
Cool. Next question. Let's have a look. So I'll do Catherine's because she'll bottom me voice. When did you realise? I think we had it. Okay, I'll do the second part of the question. So when you was a comedian, what did you find were the perks of the job? And the second part of the question was, what's the worst / best heckle you've ever had against you?
That's okay. So perks of the job are obvious. It's like you don't have to get up in the morning. Your day is yours. You can live like I found a job where I can still live like a student at the age of 40 years old, which is pathetic. I'm going to tell you that right now. But the perks of the job are meeting amazing people, these individuals, the comics you work with, some of the people who run the clubs as well. They're amazing people. So yeah, those are the perks of the job, apart from the obvious massive amounts of adoration and women just throwing themselves at you non-stop. Well, I say that, not me. That's good. Worst heckle. Do you know what? Everyone asks the heckles, and a lot of people ask this question with comedians. It's got to be bad when people heckle. It's one or two things. Either they say something fucking amazing, and you just got to acknowledge it. You just kind of got to go, yeah, let's bring that into the show. Let's use it. Or the people that are heckling are usually the people that have been annoying the whole night, so the crowd hate them. So whatever you say back, you're gonna win. You are, because the crowd, you've got a mass of people wanting this dickhead to shut up. But the worst actual heckle I ever got was and the Christmas gigs. If you think cage fighting is bad, you should do Christmas gigs in the big clubs in the comedy clubs in this country, because they're all just works dues, stag dues. And they're the worst audiences. No, it's danger money. You get paid more at Christmas because it's danger money. So you use crowd control. That is all you are. You're literally
crowd
up there.
Control.
You literally are. You're just trying to spin the plates, trying to keep it calm, do your time, get off, get paid. But there was one venue in Bristol, and they'd messed up the catering. So there was all these businesses that had bought their Christmas dinner and the comedy show for whatever. So there's all these tables, and they'd only made enough for half the people to get fed. So half the room were fuming. So they were trying to cook a Christmas dinner before we start the show. And now you can't just whatever. So it was like the show started 3.5 hours late and people hadn't eaten them. So by the time the food had come out, they said, right, we're going to start the comedy as soon as we get their food out. And we went up and I had to MC it, and I went up, and obviously they just hate you because they think you're part of the problem. And as I got up, before I'd even said a word, I was about to take the microphone out of the stage, and a roast potato bounced off my head. And this massive bloke just went, they're fucking cold. I was like, I can't do anything with this. I can't do anything with this.
I'm out.
Yeah. I went back to my hotel. So we got back late, went back to the hotel room, and I remember just sitting there, and I bought myself a bottle of wine on the way back, and I just I was that sad comic, just no music on, just drinking, going, what the fuck am I doing? Jesus Christ.
Next guy.
So I'll ask Nicole's one, otherwise she'll kill me if I don't. So, is there any plans for like live or online stand-ups that you've got coming up. She basically put this because she needs someone else to laugh at other than me.
Oh, mate. Do you know what? A few people have asked me this. So there are some comics doing this. There's some comedy clubs doing it as well. Check out The Stand. There are a chain of clubs that are in the north of England. They're amazing. They're doing it with some solid comics. There's some comics that have done it themselves. There's one guy who's doing gigs from his shed, but usually where he writes, he's now just live streaming himself from his shed. And I was thinking about putting together one maybe to do that with people that I know that train jiu-jitsu or train MMA, and using them as comics and maybe doing something for that sort of community. So it's something I'm thinking about. I might do the comedian one. I might get in contact with them because they're doing shows. But it's so I find it hard to imagine, like me talking to you guys. There's something coming back, but me just speaking to my camera, hoping that someone's laughing and not just calling me a prick in the.
I think that's a great point to see if there is a reaction.
It's all about comedy is 50-50. I say something, you give me something back. I say something again, you give me something back, and that's how it works. But there's like me just sitting in my room going, here's another cock gag. And the only thing that would be a heckle on the live is, do you know where they say on Facebook where it says how many viewers you've got? Do you imagine if you're doing your set and it goes 58, 54, 53, 52? Fucking hell. Not even my mum's watching.
People this weekend for WrestleMania were putting audience on YouTube, audience background whilst watching it to make it feel better. So try that, just like loads of like people laughing as a YouTube video as you're going.
The saddest bit about that is I'd have to use other people's gigs and pictures of their audiences. My audiences were never that happy. I don't know what the problem was. I don't know.
I'll go next. So, Jamie's question I like. This puts you on the spot. If you could only choose one career path, comedy or MMA commentating, what would it be?
Do you know what? It's not a hard question for me. That you think it because they're two dream careers, but MMA commentary wins for me hands down. There's
nice.
I love comedy. I'm pretty good at it, but I've never put the amount of work I'd put into MMA commentary as I did in comedy. If I did that, I'd probably be selling out arenas. But I did it. I'm very good at being off the cuff, and I'm good at knowing how jokes should form. But the work I just know it because of the amount of work I put into it. I put more work into the MMA stuff than I do. I feel very lucky to have done both. I feel very lucky that somehow I made some sort of living out of either of them, let alone both of them. But if it was a gun to my head, it would be MMA commentary.
Cool. Awesome. Simon, I think we've only got two questions left. Do you want to sort of merge the one from Marcus and is it Daniel, both jiu-jitsu questions? So we'll sort of go from there.
So this last question here, we've got first part of it is sort of what's your favourite submission to go for while training? And secondly, the second part of it is what skills have you sort of gained from training that you've sort of transferred over to your careers in commentating and comedy?
Favourite submission? Head and arm triangle, without a doubt. That is my favourite. I have had a lot of success with that, and
I think you've got me with that. Funnily enough,
I have got you with that, mate. Because I can still picking out your beard. To be honest, mate, I don't know whether I head and armed you or sucked you off. I'm not sure.
I said to him, "I've got a sore shoulder. Just watch it," and he went straight for it.
What this one?
That's the way to do it.
Yeah, that's it. That's right. Head and arm, without doubt. The stuff that I've learned from training would be, first of all, it's the amount of respect, because you kind of understand what these pressure moves are like. People don't know, if you're just a couch fan, what it's like being triangled from the back, as in the body triangle. What that feels like when you're trying to do so, and how frustrating it is, and you've got like all your exits are closing, as well as you've got no breath to do anything. I'm trying to describe to people that pressure, or help them understand that, is something that's shown me that you've got to try and give people some sort of respect for it. They're not just sat there. They might look like they're just trying to fend off a choke, but there's something else going on within that. And that's the same with knee on belly, or it's the same if you're stuck under mount. It's the same if you're 14 minutes into a fight and you've got to try and find people just saying, just hit him or sweep him, reverse it. It's not just about
Try
You've
lifting
got
your
s-
arms and you've been
Yeah.
spinning for 15 minutes.
Exactly, mate. Tell somebody to hit pads for a minute 30 seconds. Someone who's never done it before, that's talked minute 30 seconds. Just give us what you got for 1 minute
Without
30
putting the
seconds.
hands down.
Without
Putting your hands down.
Then he's got to keep his hands up. Yeah, well, just right hook's right there. Why aren't you using it? Yeah, jab. Shut the fuck up. But so for me, that the respect of understanding how hard it is. This is a hard sport. Whatever discipline you're doing, from boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, wrestling in particular, as well as jiu-jitsu. Just when you see masters at that and people that can just do wizardry, that's something that's given me respect for. In comedy, it's given me a little bit more confidence answering heckles, I'll tell you that. You see some fat bloke from Wigan start giving you some shit, thinking he's hard as nails. You think, oh, I'll front up a little bit. If you want it, you can have it, mate. No stress.
Outside, dickhead.
Yeah, fuck that, mate. I'm doing that inside, live on stage under lights. That's it.
Get it on that streams.
That's right. So yeah, it's taught me a lot. And with regards to just self growth and all that, discipline and work and all that stuff. If you want to get good at something, you gotta practice it. You gotta do it. You got to invest in it. And if you want to make something happen, it's like all these careers that I've been lucky enough to do, from acting to comedy to mixed martial arts commentary. That it's all find a passion and do it. Believe in yourself. I remember with the MMA commentary, a little microphone, sat in my bedroom, talking into it all by myself. And I even had my brother, he is my biggest supporter. He helps me through everything. Say, seriously though, mate, is there anything in this? Can you get a career out of this? And just me thinking, do you know what? It's not about a career. It's about just doing something that I love. This is something I want to spend my time doing, something that I enjoy, something that gives something back to me. And then in the end, it turns into something else. So yeah, believe in yourselves, people. Dream.
Audio say believe in yourself. Simon, any sort of final question for Bryan before we let him go?
I think everything's just been answered really greatly. So I think one thing I'd probably ask you is, have you got anything that anybody you want to shout out, or anything that you want to sort of announce to everyone before we wrap up?
Just give us a follow, guys. I'm lonely. I'm sad. I'm lonely. I'm on TikTok. That is a desperate measure for a man of 40 years old.
Remind us what are your handles?
It's at Bryan Lacey MMA on Twitter and Instagram. That's Bryan with a Y. Bryan_Lacey on TikTok, guys. Give us a shout. And Bryan Lacey, is it just Bryan Lacey? Bryan Lacey on YouTube, /Bryan Lacey on YouTube.
I feel like I'm just going to download TikTok, just to watch yours now. I don't even have it, but I'm just going to download it just because.
Mate. There you go, mate.
I think one question that I want to ask, because like you say about the Winter Warrior you did, are you planning to compete again? I know you're injured right now, but when you hopefully fingers crossed get back to full health, do you think you'll compete again?
Do you know what? Jiu-jitsu, yeah, definitely, mate. Definitely.
Get you an Empire. Get you a super fight and Empire.
Well, yeah, I think you've already talked about this against Josh Goodwin, haven't you? That's it.
About. Oh, I'll have to get Josh on this one.
Josh is down, mate. I worked with Josh in badminton, and every time I went in the morning, I thought he was going to be in his gi. Once I get my knee sorted, once that's done and dusted, then I'll get back to it. Jiu-jitsu is the only sport. I don't like going to the gym. I don't like running. I don't like any of that. Jiu-jitsu is the only sport that I've really sort of enjoyed that doesn't feel like you're training as far as running on a machine or whatever.
Amazing. So, is anyone you want to shout out? Have you got anyone that supports you more than anyone that you think, or any sponsors? Anyone?
There's lots of gems in the world that I'm lucky. So obviously, my wife, please don't kill me over these next few months. I'll do my best. She was hitting pads this morning, so she's getting more dangerous. Always give a shout out to people who work at UKFC, Steve Nightingale and yourselves. It's Aaron AB. That is a special show you've got there, mate. It truly is something special. So feel very lucky to be part of that. And then also people just watch out for Great British Top Team with Brad Pickett and their affiliation, Manchester Top Team with Carl Prince. Big shout out to Carl Prince. That is one of the people that I've met in this thing that's helped sort of. He's taught me more lessons than he knows,
And I'd cut off my arm for that, man. So just keep your eyes on those two teams as they sort of charge through the UK European MMA scene.
Sweet.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you for listening to everyone. This
thank you.
podcast will be going out tomorrow. So obviously when you listen to this live, it's now. We've got a couple of guests lined up. So I think next week we're trying to get Mohamed Mokiev, which we all work with. See, I was waiting for it.
Best amateur fighter, Mohamed Mokiev.
There's the compare again. I was setting that up.
Mate, listen. Now that young man, forget everyone. Like when you have great success, what comes with it is a lot of people wanting to bring you down or waiting for that downfall. I have seen that young man. I'm lucky enough to commentate on the IMAFs as well. I have seen that young man fight at such a level that against top competition, with all the odds against him, with a lot of people hoping that he'll lose, his mindset, but again, his work ethic is ridiculous. And under the tutelage now of Dean Garnett, with the likes of Marlon Jones, the warriors that they've got over there at Aspire, he is something special. As his story from where he's come from to what to the UK. And then what he has achieved so far, 23-0. Oceania champion. He just won that with an injury with a tooth. He had to sign a waiver before he went into that fight because they weren't going to clear him because he had a tooth infection. Two-time, he's defended the bantamweight junior championship, beat Rio Yamaguchi 2 years in a row in Bahrain. European champion. And then all the other stuff.
As well, didn't
he beat Yamaguchi as well, and all the other stuff that comes with it. For how old he is, for the life he's come from. There's so many distractions he could easily fall into. That is the best amateur fighter that I have had the luck to call fights for.
Yeah, we can't ask for a better lead-in. Hopefully we get Mo next week. We're currently talking to him to see when it's available. So Mohamed Mokiev hopefully next week. Bryan, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank
Stay
you very much,
sane.
mate.
Keep in touch. If you ever just want to speak to us, just to vent or anything like that.
Don't say it, mate. Don't say it. I'll be here on Zoom in my room. Are they back yet? Are they back? Just leave me on. Forget the edit. Just leave me here. You'll just watch me. My beard grow. Me slowly wither away. But that's fine. Pleasure, gents. Thank you. Genuinely a pleasure.
I can't believe we've literally gone over 2 hours. That is crazy.
Mate, I haven't spoken to other fully grown adults apart from my wife. For a long time. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome back anytime, even as
tomorrow. Tomorrow, call me.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening, and peace out.